Okay, in video 2, we're going to continue building our, we're going to continue using our database that we built in video 1. We're going to use it to do some more queries, right? Query 1, if you remember, was a crosstab with major school categories as row headers, and the highest cost consumers or student respondents to our survey were willing to pay to go on a May-term trip, right? And then query 2, because the information from query 2 crosstab came from multiple imported tables, survey, link experience, and experience, we had to create a feeder table. This table feeds our crosstab, right? So our queries are really this one and that one. These are our end products. This is a means to an end, right? This is a means to an end. So this is the feeder table for that. So this is our output right here, these two, right? And our query 2 output was type of experience, categories as row headers, and then major or school that you're majoring in as the column headers. Okay. Our next query is going to be most popular area that respondents indicated they wanted to visit by their school. So instead of having type of experience with major school, we're going to have areas that they wanted to go to, right? And if you remember what the areas are stay in America, go to Europe, go to Asia, South or Central America, Oceania, which would include Australia, New Zealand, Samoa, Africa, and then some other. I don't know what the other would be. Maybe the other is Antarctica or the moon, right? I'm not sure. The moon would be a good May-term trip, I think. It'd be kind of fun. I wouldn't want to go to Mars, man. That's once we got a ship that could go there, that would be a long haul, man. What, a 1.5-year trip or something? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close out the areas table. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out crosstab 2. I'm going to cross out crosstab 1. And you always want to have this open, right? So when your boss says, hey, I need a query on most popular area people want to visit by the school that they're in, right? By by their major, right? So you want to have this diagram open. So the major is in the survey table, and the area that people want to go to is in the areas table, right? So we need these 3 tables in this particular query, right? So let's go to create query design, because we have a multiple table query. We can't use query wizard. We have a multiple query table. We're pulling information from 3 different tables. We need a query design, right? Now I'll close this out right here. Pull this up. Okay, so major schools in the survey table, right? And then areas, right? Areas. And areas, and then link area, right? There you go. So again, if you're doing this professionally and you're using SQL, not Access, this would be a piece of paper, right? You'd have this in a folder with all the databases that you have to query all the time, right? So it's easy access. I mean, if you're doing this 1,000 times, then you wouldn't need the paper, right? So until that point, you want to have a piece of paper showing you the map of the database system, right? So the first thing you would do in SQL is you would interjoin these tables together, right? And this is what it would look like. So from survey, right? From survey, we're going to interjoin on what? areas, right? And then we're going to do another inner join, but this time on link area, right? Link area. And then our areas table is going to be connected to the link area. And then that resulting table is going to be connected to the survey table via survey ID, right? So from the survey table, right, and the areas table and the link area table, right? These three things are tables, right? We're going to connect areas table to link area table via area ID, right? And then that resulting table is going to be connected to the survey table, right, using survey ID. Okay, let's go back to design view. Oh, whoops. Oh, I forgot to, we have to select something here. We're just going to select survey.major, right? And oh, and I want to do this too. I want to put this object down one line and then add it over. There you go. All right, cool. Now that should work. So we have to select something. We can't have it empty. So let's go ahead and run it. And this just gives us the major school, right? All right. Okay. So let's go back to design view. All right. So the major school shows up there. All right, cool. Awesome. So what do we need here? We need the most popular area by school, so major school. And then we need the area, right? The area that they're interested in visiting, right? And then we need a third thing. We need a third thing so we can count on it, right? So we're going to count on survey ID. Now, the reason why I use survey ID, again, because it is a synonym for the respondents' names. So 1 might be some guy named John Smith. Survey ID 2 might indicate somebody named Jill Johnson, right, for example. So let me go ahead and run that and show you the raw data, right? So if we sort smallest to largest here, we can see that John Smith, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 2 Jill Johnsons, and there's there's 6 areas that Smith wanted to go to, and there's 2 areas that Johnson wanted to go to, and there's 1 area that Dobbs wanted to go to, right? So this is the raw data. This is from the survey table, this is from the area table, and this is from the link areas table, right? So we got 3 tables here, items from 3 different tables becoming one object, a table called query 3. Okay, at this point we could we could use this to feed another crosstab. But what we're going to do is we're not going to do that. We're going to go back and we're going to group by major school and areas. Let's go back to design view. And all we're going to do is we're going to click totals. And we're going to change the survey ID from group by. We want to group by major school area. We want to count on survey ID, right? We're going to count. Okay. And then we'll run that. I'm going to do a descending here, or ascending, and an ascending here, and then run it. Okay, so if I click this area here, and I can size it, right? So this table is not as compact as a pivot table, right? Because we could definitely pivot on major school. We could make each one of these a column header, right? And make each one of these a row header. So we could actually pivot this we could pivot major school into a pivot table, right? But we're not going to do that. Also, this is a little wordy here. So I'm going to go back to design view. And let's see. Let's do this. Let's do total with a colon. I added total with a colon right there, right? Let's run that. So changed it to total, right? It might be better to do frequency. So let's go back to design view and change this to frequency. We'll call it freak for short. There you go. So frequency. And then we can double click this, right? So the way you can change the column name is by putting in front of the thing that you're going to count on. You can put a colon in between it and the name you want to give it, right? In SQL view, it would look like this. Oops. So there's a comma there. So after the comma, and then here's the table. Then we're going to do an inner join with the areas table, another inner join with link area on areas and on survey idea. We're going to group by and order by, right? So in this SQL code, you need to keep the survey dot, because how many tables are floating around here? We got the survey dot, we got the link table, the areas table. So you got to keep the table prefix here, right? Survey dot, areas dot, link area dot, right? Survey table, areas table, link area table, areas table, link area table, survey table, link area table, right? And then we're going to group by what? We're going to group by major school and areas. And we're going to order by, first we're going to order by major school, and then we're going to order by areas. So this is just alphabetical, right? And notice to rename this count, right, in the SQL code, you put on a suffix called as freak. So this is the name you give it, right? So if I change this to freak with a K, right, and I run it, it's going to change the name to freak with a K, right? So design SQL view. I'll change that back to freak with a Q, right? There's a comma here and a comma here, but there's no comma here. If you put a comma here, then SQL thinks this is an object, which it's not, right? It's a reserved word for a function. There you go. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to copy this table into our Word document. It's not as compact as a pivot table, right? That pivot table is pretty compact. This could be a pivot table, right? It could be a pivot table. We could pivot major school to the column headers, right? So it's a little harder to read. Some people like this version better than that version, but I like this version better. So, and then below the query 3 table, we're going to put the code, right? We're going to put the codes, the SQL code. So we're going to right click on query 3, SQL view, and we're going to get the SQL code that has been cleaned, right, and understandable. Okay, so there's that. Okay, the next query we're going to do, your boss wants average of the highest cost respondents are willing to pay by school. So we'll go ahead and close this out. We're going to do a new query. So we need highest cost respondents are willing to pay by school. So we only need the survey table here. So let's create. We could do a query wizard, but we're going to do a query design. Okay, so again, we only need the survey table because all the information we need is in the survey table, right? Oops. Not double click, drag. Click and drag. Okay, so we needed major school, and then we needed highest cost, right? Highest cost. Okay. Now, if I just run this, the highest cost responsible owner to pay, if I just run this by clicking query design and then run, right? They're not being aggregated, are they? They're not being averaged. Right? So we want to average by business, right? How many highest cost do we have for business majors? We got quite a few, don't we? See that? We want to average all those up. We have quite a few for education. We have quite a few for nursing. We got some missing values in here too, right? Missing values. So we got some missing values, but we want to average these by school, right? So for undeclared, for example, we had to add this to that, to that, to that, and then divide by 4, right? So that's what we're going to have access to now. So go back to design view. And the way you do that is you got to get an aggregating function, right? So we're going to click on the totals. And now if we don't change this to average, what's going to happen? Right? Okay, so we're not averaging. So let's go back to design view. Let's change this group by to average and then run. Okay, so why are these hashtags here? Well, if I double click, if I click on this little gray box here to highlight the table, then I turn my cursor into a black plus with arrows pointing in each direction, I can see that I got a rounding issue here, right? So what I can do is I can go back to design view and then click on property sheet. Here I got my design view down here, right? Average. So make sure your cursor is in the average highest cost column and then click on property sheet. Right? I'm still blinking in the average, right? So let's go back over here to format. So if I click this little down arrow, I can choose currency. Right? So I changed it to currency, and then if I run it, now I got a $sign in front of my highest cost, right? And the decimals have been rounded to 2 places. Y'all see that? That's a pretty good name for it. So I'm going to leave the name as average of highest cost. I'm going to click this little box here to highlight the whole table. I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to paste it into my Word answer sheet. Right here. Okay. Now I got to get the SQL code. So I'm going to right click on that and view SQL code. After select, I want to hit enter and then space that out. After the comma, I'm going to hit enter and space it out. And then after from, I'm going to hit enter and space it out because the things on the right are the objects and the thing on the left are these reserved words for these functions in SQL, right? Now everything comes from the survey table, right? So I can get rid of the survey dot prefix just to make it more readable, right? Now if I run that, what happens, right? Now, if there was a rounding issue here, what I could do, go back to SQL view. I might just say this too. I'll change that of to just underscore. If rounding was an issue, I could type round parenthesis, and then I got this object, this thing called average highest cost, right? I want to round the average highest cost. So after that parenthesis, I'm going to type a comma, a 2, and a close parenthesis. And now it rounds two decimal places, right? Rounds to 2 decimal places. Now, I prefer the $signs. So let me go back to SQL view. We'll get rid of the round as 2 decimal places. And we'll just do average. Average parenthesis, highest cost, close parenthesis. And then run. Now, because I did it in SQL, I messed up my decimal places and the dollar signs. So let's just go. Oh, let me get the SQL code first. Okay, let's get the SQL code, because if I go to design view, it's going to mess up my SQL code. And we're going to paste the SQL code into my answer sheet right below query 4. Okay. Looks like I'm doing a pretty good job of spacing it. Let me change all this font size to 10 so it's consistent. Yeah, it's pretty good on my spacing there. Yeah. Okay, interesting. All right, so we'll go back here and we'll go to design view and we'll change average cost format back to currency, right? And then we'll run it. And it is back into currency right now. But now watch what happens to the SQL code when I go to design view, run it, and then I go back to SQL view. It messes it back up, right? So note that, right? If you go to design view after you've prettied up your SQL code and you run it, you're going to mess up your, right? Your make pretty SQL code, right? All right, fifth and final query. We're going to do a query where it's kind of similar to what we just did, but we want some stats by school and year. And the stats we want are how many people have chosen to register for a May term this semester, how many have been on a May term trip in the past, and what's the average interest in going on a May term trip, and then the average highest cost. So it's kind of similar to what we just did. And everything is going to be in this table here, right? So major school, past May term, current May term, interest in the May term, and highest cost. So let's go to create query design. So like I said, it's going to be like it was before, right? It's going to look a lot like what we already did. We got major school, we got past May term, current May term, interest in May term, and the highest cost, right? And then we're going to do totals like we did before. So we're going to group by major school. We're going to change this to count, right? We're going to count the yeses. We're going to count the yeses here. Then we're going to average interest in May term. And we're going to average the highest cost. Now, keep in mind, when we average the highest cost, we had a decimal issue, right? So let's go ahead and fix that before we run it. We're going to change this average to floating decimal to a fixed decimal, right? We're going to change it to a fixed decimal. So my cursor is blinking on average highest cost. We can go to format. We change it to currency, right? And then we don't want like 1.33333 for the average for interest May, right? We want it maybe 1.33. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on average here, and we're going to click format, fixed decimal, and we're going to type 2 for 2 decimal places, right? And we'll go ahead and run that, and it's going to look pretty good from the get-go, right? Now these are kind of long names. I mean, I guess it's all right. You can see that we have 4 decimal places here, right? Let's look at the SQL code real quick. SQL view. So I got my select. My first column is going to be survey major school, right? My second column is going to be count of past May term. My third column is going to be the count of current May term. My fourth column is going to be the average of interest in the May term. My last column is going to be the average of the highest cost our respondents are willing to pay. We're getting everything from the survey table, and we're grouping by major school. Now we're getting everything from one table, so we don't need survey dot prefix. Right? Since we got multiple since we've got multiple namings of these objects, I'm going to line these up on average, or on the word as. So this just means we're naming this object, these counts, count of past May term. Right? We're naming this object, this object, count of current May registration. And we're renaming this object average of interest in May term. And we're naming this object average highest cost, right? I might get rid of the of here. Edit the name, get rid of that of, and then get rid of the, maybe I could do n for number, right? N underscore for number, make it more brief, right? That might look better, right? So let me go ahead and copy that code, and I'll paste it in my worksheet. All right, I haven't got the table yet, so I'm going to put it down here, right? Oh, looks like Courier has, there we go, has. Here we go. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's go back to Access and run it. So change the names, right? Change the names. But it also kind of messed up my decimal places, right? If I go back to design view, it's going to mess up my SQL code. It's going to jumble it up, right? Make it not so pretty. So I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, I already got the SQL code, so that's fine. So I'm going to go to design view and change this to currency. I'm going to change this to fixed decimal to places. Right, and then I'll run. Now it looks nice and pretty, right? Okay. So I'm going to copy this table. I'm going to paste it to my Word document, my answer sheet. And then put the code right underneath it. So this is what I expect for the Access tutorial right here. This is what I expect for the Access tutorial, right? The query tables, the output tables, and the SQL code. Now, I don't think we're going to do the SQL in class because we're kind of running out of time. So if you want to do the SQL part of the tutorial, then you can come to my office. I can show you how to do it if you'd like. Or I'll make a video, right? All right, that's the end of tutorial for Access/SQL.